This episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast is brought to you in part by No Judges Needed BJJ Apparel and Lavender Lane CBD products. You can use the promo code JJT for 20% off your first order at No Judges Needed, and the code JJ Times 20, all uppercase. Last two items are numerical for 20% off your first order of CBD products. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. I am your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher. And now, let's talk about Kevin for a sec, because I'm very fortunate to be able to do this show with such an accomplished guy. He's an IBJJF Masters champion. And, very often that's like such an end-all be-all thing, and like he talks about it a lot, and I can't really say anything. Who am I? But
brown belt masters too, by the way, just for the folks.
Okay, all right, but today is very special because we are joined on the show by not only one but two IBJJF Masters champions. And it is a very, very rare opportunity that I'm going to take full advantage of, being a young guy with a lot of questions about jiu-jitsu. So Please join me in welcoming 2019 IBJJF Masters champion and AOJ black belt, as well as author and recent van lifer, Nick the Tooth Gullo. Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, let's just first of all, we got to say you recently celebrated a birthday, so happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. It's my birthday month, I always like to say.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, when it's my birthday month, I get to burn whoever I want for waves. So I'm going to take the whole month.
My fiance is the same way, because she was born on the 1st of the month, so she's like, I own the whole thing, like pillar to post. It's all mine.
Yeah,
now,
that's a strong
birthday should go for a month at least. And I always tell people my birthday lasts until people quit buying me beers. When people are like, dude, your birthday was like fucking a month ago. I'm not buying you new beers anymore. Now my birthday's over now.
I'm just imagining. So Kevin's birthday celebration never really stops, because there's always some like really eager blue belt that's willing to buy him a beer.
I'll buy you a beer, Coach Kev. When's your birthday? January? Happy birthday, bud.
Oh, geez, Coach Kev. Thank you so much for your help. I love the sweeps that you taught me. But yeah, how is it's like it's a stressful time, for the world, and you felt it more than a lot, just because you like this illness hit you pretty close to home. I know you were experiencing symptoms a while ago. How's the health doing right now? If you know,
I got it back in March, like really, really early on, and I'm fine. I mean, after you recover, I think we know a lot more now. Some people actually do have symptoms that linger for a long time. I didn't. Being as it's a respiratory disease, my cardio always sucked anyways. So it's like if it lingered and there are residual effects of that, I don't notice, because my cardio, like I said, it always sucks. So. But no, I've been fine. I've been fine for, it lasted for me like 3 weeks, and then that was it. But it was gnarly, man. It was heavy when it hit. And what's interesting is that, most people that I know that were not asymptomatic that got it, they had it's not the flu, man. It's much more intense. And one of the things I think that's really hard, a friend of mine who rolls at AOJ I just found out that his uncle died. His uncle's like 60 years old in perfect health, and his brother, his other uncle, got it also and lived. And so it's really kind of I think that's the scariest thing about it, is that it is in a sense Russian roulette, to where you could be healthy and it'll kill you, and in all likelihood nothing's going to happen. The odds are with you if you're healthy, but there's just always that chance, So
yeah, I mean, one of the big warning signs early on was, I think Hodger was one of the first big jiu-jitsu guys to come out and say, I got it. And it's no joke, and anything that's enough to scare Hodger Gracie, I'm just like, okay,
right? That dude is Superman. Yeah, and he's young too. So
Yeah, he's I don't think he's barely 40. Was he like 35 or something?
I think
like
so.
that?
Yeah, 37 maybe, like at the latest.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, and you see how it's affected small businesses, but you also it's a tightrope walk because our sport is very it's almost entirely contact oriented. So what are you gonna do? Did you before you got diagnosed, was your training affected? Just because I know a lot of places started to close down and tighten up around.
Like 3 weeks before the pandemic hit, I think it was like probably like late February. I went out and I bought a van. So I bought a Sprinter van. It was something that my wife and I had been talking about for years. They're like, I'd say 12 years ago, 14. No, it was longer than that. It was like 14 years ago. I bought an old Airstream off the side of the road. One of those silver trailers. And I renovated that. And my wife and daughter and I lived in the Airstream, and we just traveled the country for like 6 months. And so our daughter now is married and she lives in London. And so, yeah, I started very early. So, so my wife and I were kind of like, let's just travel again, man. And so I went and got a Sprinter van, and then the pandemic hit. But because I bought the Sprinter van, I decided to forego Pan Ams and just do everything. I was thinking I could build out the van in like 30, 40 days. And so I just started working on this van like 8 hours a day. And so I cut back my training significantly to like probably 3 days a week. I typically train like 6 days a week. We're 3 days drilling and 3 days over at AOJ sparring. Typically I'd be like 3 days at Ruka at the private gym and just with one of my drilling partners. And so I cut back on that a lot, and I really wasn't going to AOJ, and I wasn't going to, I was only going over to Ruka. But so a lot of people were like, hey, did you get it at AOJ? And I was like, no, because I wasn't over there when I got sick. I actually got it from someone else who trains and who just came over to the house, and they didn't tell me they were sick.
That's how it's cool.
Shit. I remember the early on at Kev, I was actually most worried about you just because those images of everyone at Kev's in Florida and everyone, all those images of everyone going to the beach and just like partying for spring break. And he's just like, I swear to God, Kevin.
Well, I mean, it's just like the Wild West here in Florida. Like these guys are just doing whatever the hell they want to. Like we haven't even.
I'm from Florida, so I know.
Oh, yeah, where are you from?
Yeah. Florida's a disaster.
Yeah.
Florida man is real.
Man, it really is. People that aren't from Florida don't realize how insane of a place Florida is. It's like a refuge for all of the castaways of the rest of the country. If you're a fuck up, if you're some kind of a con man, if you're like an ex-meth addict that's trying to get right or just doesn't want to get right, you move to Florida.
I mean, no, Drew Weatherhead from Because Jitsu, I think, said it best when he was like, I think it was New York is where you make your money. And Vegas is where you make your name, and Florida is where you go to hide your money and change your name.
LA is where you make your name.
LA is where you make your name, right? So shout out, Drew. Where are you from originally, Tooth?
Well, I'm actually born in New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so, but I grew up in Vegas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where in Florida did you live at?
So I lived in the Panhandle. So just Pensacola and Panama City.
That's the real fucking Florida.
That's lower Alabama. That ain't even Florida, man. That's where shit gets real.
That's where shit gets real.
They're in the Keys. Like the Keys are off the chain too, man. Because if you live down in the Keys, you're a psychopath.
Yeah, but the Keys are a different type of crazy. They just kind of like live. They live in their own little world, you know.
Totally. Yeah, you just dropped off the face of the earth. If you
right. Yeah, they fucking motherfuckers. They're all fucking each other and doing drugs. And
I remember
living that free life, man.
I remember thinking like the only time I'd ever heard about the Florida Keys was in like an old Schwarzenegger movie. I think it was like True Lies when he's like, it was True Lies, and then like years later, don't ever really think about the Keys again. And then I see on YouTube a video of the Coast Guard like boating to the middle of nowhere, and then a submarine rises, and then they get off the boat with guns and then take like everyone out of the submarine with like a bunch of drugs, and then it's like, this is off the coast of Miami, and I'm like, Jesus.
That movie honestly is a very underrated. Brian De Palma directed that movie, by the way. If you haven't seen True Lies, and when you watch it, you can totally see, wow, this is a well-made Brian De Palma film with the cuts, and it kind of has that noir kind of feel to it. It's
Jamie Lee Curtis is also just underrated, very talented.
You get to see Jamie Lee Curtis in like I don't think you see her boobs, but you see her pretty naked.
I just want to reiterate, we're 10 minutes into a jiu-jitsu podcast. Very little jiu-jitsu, a lot of dissecting the cult classic True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis. But I think that
I was born in New Orleans. I was raised in Vegas. I lived in California for a period of time before moving back to New Orleans, meeting my wife, going to school, went to grad school and all that shit in New Orleans, and then we ended up going to Florida. Was in Florida for quite a long time, lived down in Naples, then lived up in the Panhandle, and then we jumped in the Airstream after Hurricane Katrina and came out to the West Coast, and that's how we landed in Newport Beach, where AOJ is.
Man, you kind of made the circuit. That's pretty cool. You've lived in some pretty cool and interesting places, man. I envy you that regard. You're kind of a worldly man. You know, it's interesting. Like, you've touched the meccas of culture in Florida or in America. You know?
Yeah, I've lived in Chicago. I've lived all over. We're nomads. My wife and I have always moved. That's why we love the van life.
What'd you get your degree in, if you don't mind me asking? I'm just curious.
I went to Tulane for law school, and I got my MBA also.
Fucking A, Nick, this is impressive. I met you once at the Masters, and like I don't know you well, but I know enough about you, and you kind of have this allure of like this kind of like floaty kind of like, Renaissance man. They kind of like up and down, but like, dude, you went to Tulane. You got a law degree from Tulane. That's impressive. What the fuck? Well, what happened, Nick?
Fried my brain to the point where I'm just like, no more. I'm just gonna float from here on out.
What point did you kind of? I mean, because if you're going to law school at Tulane, you obviously have some kind of focus in your life to be a professional or to do something in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
What point in your life did you kind of realize that just wasn't the direction you wanted to go in, and you went down the route you're in now?
Well, I mean, I love things that are cerebral, and I love a challenge. It just gives my life meaning. And so I went to law school just because I thought it would be challenging and I thought I would enjoy it. And then when I was in law school, I took a class over at the business school, and I thought, well, you know what? It'll be even more challenging because within the first year my wife and I got married in August, and I started law school in September, and then we had a baby within a year. And then a year after that, I started my MBA. And so I just like shit that's hard, I like difficult, long, projects. And so for me, that's what school really was. And then when I got out of school, I decided, instead of going to practicing law, I wanted to get into real estate development. So I did that, and I became a general contractor in Florida and built, complexes and developments and shit like that. And then I got tired of that, and so decided I wanted to do something else. But that's like my whole floating thing. I just like to find things. That's why I love jiu-jitsu, because it's so difficult and it's so cerebral, and it's never, and it's a game that just always, you never stop growing with it, right? As much as you give, you get.
Exactly. I could say that all the time. Every time I teach, I could teach the same armbar 1,000 times. And every time I teach it, I literally find something new about it. Something as simple as extending the arm, breaking the elbow. I find a new little nuance that I go, oh, wow, if I put my foot here instead of there, this is the why this works in that manner. And it's constantly evolving and growing. It's just such a beautiful thing.
It's really cool, man. It's so rad.
But
I find, that progression throughout my life. I mean, jiu-jitsu it played right into that, I like surfing for that reason too. It's hard. It's difficult, you know.
Where did jiu-jitsu come into play? When did you start doing jiu-jitsu? Did you martial arts before? Or did you just kind of like meet some people?
No, but I wrestled from like 8 years old to 18.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up grappling.
Right.
But I resisted jiu-jitsu. You know, I first rolled, I think it was like 1999. It was Dana White and I, and we were underneath the UFC corporate offices. There was a gym, and I think it was John Lewis was kind of showing Dana some jiu-jitsu, and that was really early. That was jiu-jitsu was so rudimentary at that point comparatively, you know. But at that time I just was, you know, we did it and I was like, it just wasn't something that grabbed me at that point in my life. And but I rolled again when I started getting interested in it, when a buddy of mine who trains under James Moran, who's like one of the first American black belts, he in Costa Mesa, we would get drunk and he was just starting. He was a blue belt, and so he would challenge me. And one time we just like rolled all the way through a bookcase, took down an entire wall, and afterwards I was like, all right, I'm going to try this. I mean, if you're getting into this like this, then I'm going to try it. And so at that point, I started. I knew that I wanted to learn at a gym that was advanced. I kind of had that idea in my mind, even though I didn't know what that meant. And so I went to probably 8 different gyms, because we have a lot of gyms. And even back then when I started, you know, which wasn't that long ago, but like 2012, there were a lot of gyms. And so I went to gym after gym, and finally Pat Tenori, who I'm friends with, who started Ruka, the owner of Ruka, he was opening a gym, he told me, with the Mendes brothers, and he said, don't join another gym until our gym opens. And so I was like, I want to start right now. And so I would drop by the gym while it was under construction, and then I met the brothers at that point, and you know, started at that point I would roll with my buddy and watch YouTube videos. I was really into no-gi. I did not want to do gi at all. And so I started learning rubber guard. I went up and met Eddie Bravo and learned some rubber guard from him. And then the gym finally opened that summer. And in the first 4 months, I only would train no gi. I was like, I am not training in the gi. I hate it. I don't want to do it. If there would have been a 10th Planet, I probably would have joined the 10th Planet, but there wasn't at that point in near the house. And so anyways, I befriend, you know, it was actually really cool that I didn't train in the gi, because at that point the gym had just opened and Hoffa and Gi were in their competitive primes. You know, both of them had 3 world titles. And so Hoffa, and they were both teaching classes exclusively. And so in the no-gi class, there were 8 of us, right? And Hoffa was training for, you know, ADCC, for everything. And so because I was a wrestler, he and I couldn't, you know, really do jiu-jitsu, but I could definitely give him a look for wrestling. And so he and I would just grapple every single day. And so it was really cool, man, to look back and think what an opportunity that I had, you know, and I was able to take advantage of that.
And so, this was back in the days before they had they had come up with a big system. Their gym hadn't developed into the gargantuan AOJ that is now. We
didn't have uniforms. We didn't have anything. It was just
early 2000, 2005, 2006, something like that. Maybe 2010.
No. They opened the gym in 2012.
Well, all right, yeah, okay, cool. My brain, 10 years and 20 years, it doesn't make a difference to me anymore. It's
no, there wasn't. It was just really raw, and we would just bang heads, man. I would come out of there with, I'd say every other week I had a black eye, you know, and I was just starting, and I was 43 then when I first started, and so I just loved it, man.
I feel like this is sort of a stupid question, but is that how you lost the tooth?
No. I lost the tooth a year before then. I was surfing big waves, And I was surfing big waves down at a break called Cotton's, and it was like this, what they call this code red swell, this crazy swell. It's like 12 feet. And for me, that was big. And, like I would say 18-foot faces. And my board came back as I was being held down, and I couldn't get a breath. And I was like, shit, man, shit. And so I kicked off my leash and swam up. And as I did, by kicking off my leash, I like slingshotted the board back to me. And the back of the board hit, as I took a breath, it hit my tooth and just shattered it. And so then, but I immediately, because I had braces and everything, my teeth were actually fine. And so I actually got an implant, and I went to like the best periodontist and endodontist, and I got in Beverly Hills. What happened was I was in New Orleans for a UFC with Dana and I, and they had put a crown on it, started getting infected. So I flew back early, went right to Beverly Hills, and they put the implant in. And for the next 6 months, it was infected, and they kept giving me antibiotics, and they didn't want to take it out. And so because they couldn't take it out and it was infected, I couldn't feel the front of my face. I was still rolling all the time, and I couldn't wear a flipper, a fake tooth. And so I had to go around without a tooth. And then Dana and I started doing like video vlogs and just funny shit. And he started calling me the tooth, and then it kind of stuck. And finally, the endodontist was like, I told him, I'm like, dude, I haven't fucking tasted food in 6 months. Would you do something about my tooth? He goes, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take it out. And so we took it out, and it was the greatest relief I've ever felt in my life. I was like, oh my God, I feel so good right now. And then he's like, and we'll let it heal up, and next week we'll put a new one in. I was like, that ain't happening, bro. You are never putting anything in my mouth again. And I was like, I've been married 25 years. I don't need a tooth, man.
She can't get rid of me now.
Yeah, I've got a wife, and I've already got an awesome nickname. I am fine. I'm set.
Exactly. What exactly do I need a tooth for?
So talk to me a little bit about like your Jiu-Jitsu years, because I'm interested now, because I know you, but I don't know a considerable amount about you because I'm horrible about doing research. I just like have but like I know that you're
shout out to Kanye Duarte.
Right? I know that you are someone that's a figure in the world of MMA. Talk to me about how you got involved with Dana White in the 90s, in the early days, and how that bridge developed.
That goes back to the 80s. We grew up together.
I don't know. See these are things that like I should know, but I didn't know. But that's pretty interesting. Right.
No, we grew up together since we were kids. So
all right, so you knew Dana White
from way back before. Right. Like I said, I was around when they were just considering buying it, and that's when I first saw jiu-jitsu. And I thought it was the stupidest idea in the world. I was like, cage fighting, really, Mr. T? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life.
So at the time, were you also close at all with the Fertitas?
Yeah, I grew up with Lorenzo. He and I played football together, and yeah.
Yeah, I remember because there was I think all of you guys went to high school together as well. Yeah.
Where was that at? That was in Vegas?
They went to a different high school. Dana went to the high school, got kicked out of one high school, and went to my high school for a little bit. But that's not how I knew him. But his wife now, I was dating like one of her best friends, and we kind of met each other. We were young, really young, at that point, and that's how we met. But yeah, so that's, that was because of Vegas, and because, when we grew up in Vegas, it was very, very small. It was nothing like it is now. There were just a few high schools. It was, when I grew up there in the 70s, there were, I grew up next to a ranch where they had chickens and freaking horses. I mean, it was a cowboys and mobsters is what it was. And so it was very, very different than anybody can even.
You go to Vegas now, and people like it's like cities and like there's shit.
I don't
going
even
on.
recognize
it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
I hate it. I don't go back. I don't like it. I don't like the weather. I don't like the culture. There is no culture. I'm like, no.
So correct me if
I went to college there, and as soon the day I got out, I left and never went back.
I mean, to be fair, there is a few good reasons to go to Vegas. Namely, if you ever wanted to go see Robert Drysdale, who has a gym, his gym out there. Friend of the show.
Rob, man. He's such a cool guy. I love that dude. I'm trained there quite a bit.
He's one of those guys that's like so smart it kind of scares me talking to him. Like he's so well spoken that I feel like a caveman, like a dumb idiot.
Yeah, he's such a great guy, man.
That dude knows more about the origins of fighting and jiu-jitsu than any other human being I've ever seen in my entire life. I posted some video that was I thought was a pretty cool origin story of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, how it came from Japan, and I sent it to Robert, and I was like, hey Mo, check this out, this is cool, it's some new stuff, tell me what you think about it. And literally, like, he sent me back like a 9-paragraph message on Facebook, picking apart each individual point, and debunking this and agreeing this and tell me why this is this and this is that. Like, it's just, he just knows all that shit, man.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
He's a historian. He's a history major. He does all kinds. He's got that his movies coming out. Closed Guard.
Yeah, Closed Guard. They ran into some development snags because I don't know if you know this, but the world is in a bit of a pickle right now. But he's updating. Yeah, he's got a book coming out ahead of that. I think it's also titled Closed Guard, but I'll link it below. That should definitely be interesting. Historian and Clash of Clans addict, which I was fine. It was kind of funny to find that out. So you're getting into jiu-jitsu. You're at the groundwork of AOJ and what that will become with everybody. You started competing at blue belt, or did you start competing at?
I competed immediately. I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know any better. I mean, if you go to AOJ now, you're not going to roll with the brothers, right? It's not going to happen. You're not going to be a white belt that's going to roll with the brothers. It's never going to happen. And so, you're going to start in a beginner class. There's all this structure that, we were talking about. And another benefit of that was that they were like, dude, Hoppa was like, you're going to compete? I'm like, well, if you're going to compete, then I'm going to compete. So yeah, of course I am. And so the first tournament I did was No-Gi Worlds, and I was a white belt. And as you know, they don't have a blue belt division. I mean, a white belt division. And so I just was like, shit, man, I want to do No-Gi Worlds. I've been training for 4 months, 5 months, whatever. I think it was 4 months, every single day with Hoppa. I'm like, so I just signed up as a blue belt, and I was a white belt. And then so he was like, he found out and he goes, did you sign up as a blue belt? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, they didn't have a white belt, so I'm just going to compete. And he just kind of looked at me, and I think he looked at me, he goes, okay, this guy is clearly freaking a psychopath, and he doesn't have a tooth, and But all jokes aside, he was like, all right, let's see what you can do. And so I entered and I won. And
that was a huge thing. I remember that being like a crazy story too, just because I mean, you're right. No one really does that. The game is too well known.
I don't think you can do it anymore either. I think they've clamped down on those kind of things.
Now they have all kind of checks and balances. You got to get your structure to sign off.
You got to have memberships and all these things.
Do you get audited if you sign up and you're not really a white belt or a blue belt? That's crazy.
So anyways, that's how I got, and then I got my blue belt immediately upon that. Hoppa was like, in front of the whole school. He was like, this is how you get a belt.
You gotta win worlds.
You don't have a choice.
What's interesting is, their mentality, their competitive mentality is such that I think, above all else, it's about winning, even with their students. They don't, I've never been congratulated for a silver medal ever. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, so what? I mean, I was told one time, well, so what? You could have just faced that person you lost to in the first round and got nothing. What does that mean? I was like, oh shit, I better win next time.
Tell me a little bit about what it was like in the early days training with the Mendes brothers before they had, the gargantuan school that they have now, and the fact that they have all this acclaim as being the masters of the art they are. Like, tell me a little bit about, like, first of all, like some of the things that make them so great, and what it was like to be in a room with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was just intense. I mean, like I said, I got to train with Hoffa all the time. Some people have even sent me some videos I didn't even know existed recently of me and Hoffa rolling like within the first 3-4 weeks of the school opening. But it was intensity and he always wants to win. He always wants to win, and he wants to, really. He's going to put it to you. I mean, he is going to. One time, like when we first, I think it was like within the first 3 weeks, we kind of locked up, and I suplexed him from a lateral drop, and in the air, he's such a cat. I wrestled, so it's not like I don't know wrestling, but in the air, he just freaking flipped around and landed in such a way that he caught an armbar, and he yanked it so hard to let me know that this will never happen again.
Right.
That my arm, I couldn't straighten my arm for like 2 months. So, like I said, I would just have black eyes. I would have, it was training with Hoffa was the real freaking deal. He doesn't go light on anybody. I mean, he would let me let me get into situations where he could test himself, at least. But the reality is that, he just always hard, man. And everything that he would execute, if he was going to armbar you, he was going to armbar you hard. If he was going to take your back, you were going to get choked. You know what I mean? So it wasn't, there's that old boxing, thing that you don't want to pull your punches, because if you pull your punches in training, then when you get in a fight, you're going to have those same habits. So I think that was really, his mentality was, whatever I do, and he would say this, whatever I do in sparring, I'm going to do in competition. So I'm not going to take it easy on you. And so it was like that, and Hoffa is also just very, like, one of the most meticulous people. I mean, that gym was spotless. He would walk around with like a rag and just make sure those mats were completely white. I mean, he would do it every day, and not just once a day. He would walk around the gym all day long doing that. And I think that mentality, is reflected in, how good he became and how much he evolved the game, because, he just fixates on things,
Yeah, that my head instructor Matt Arroyo is similar in that regard. He fought in the UFC. He's got an amazing gym in Florida, but it's like everything you do. I've never had a roll with him that's just been like, hey, we're just gonna chill, a couple black belts, have a good old time. You know what I mean? Every time you roll with him, it's no, we're doing this thing. It's on. Let's make it hard. And the same regard of he's so type A, almost asphyxiated with, almost to the point where it's a sickness. But that type of desire and that type of drive is what makes him what he is. The fact that he can go out there and focus on one thing and be that determined and follow the X's and O's and get to that point. Like it's bordering between genius and insanity when you see things.
No, it's OCD madness,
Right.
I used to be like that. I had to learn how to turn that off. That's why I'm chill right now.
Yeah.
Because it drove me mad. It's like I told Hop all the time, I'm like, you're going to be like Howard freaking Hughes. Howard Hughes was like that. And at the end of his life, his fingernails were like this long and his hair was like out to here. You break. Eventually it breaks you,
He's dreaming. Like, his brain was already doing space travel. Like, he's like, he's like, I did planes. Now we got to do the next thing. Right? It's crazy. Like, it consumes you. And I think that having that physical outlet of jiu-jitsu, like being like, if you're losing yourself in a purely mental pursuit, it's hard for people to check you because you're in your own head and you're not not a part of the world. But in jiu-jitsu, you're getting physically like confronted by people that are your friends in a safe environment. So I feel like there's a lot of ways that you can get pulled out of that sort of that being in your own head. I feel like the only guys that really run that risk are like the true savants at like the edge of the sport that are just like talking in limericks and stuff, and they're just like they're already like, when humans evolve tails, this will be a great submission for that or some shit. Like they're the guys that we don't even think about.
No, I think that's one of the benefits of coming to the sport later in life, is that I was never under the delusion, you know what I mean, that it was anything more than something that I just wanted to challenge myself with. Because I do think about that. I think about, you know, if I had come to it, you know, at a very young age, I mean, it just it would have been obsessive for me. And I'm glad it's not, because I love it because it's not. You know what I mean? I go out, like you're saying, I can go out there and I can roll with you guys and I can have fun and not give a shit. And competition's different. You know, when I start getting ready for a competition 6 weeks before, shit gets real with every roll. And I make sure that I have that mentality going into the tournament. But, you know, aside from that, I'm just there to have fun, you know?
Yeah, so when I think about Rafa Mendes, like I really think about someone that is a true revolutionary in the art of jiu-jitsu. Like he changed the game undoubtedly. You know what I mean? He created things, he did things that changed the aspects of sport jiu-jitsu to another level that other people follow in the same way. Like Marcelo Garcia, same type of thing. And the part of my brain that kind of struggles with that is, you know, because you think about people that are like artistically minded, that are revolutionary, because jiu-jitsu is an art, and there's no question about that. There's an art aspect to it. And someone as type A motivated as Rafa, I find it difficult to also think of him as a person that can be that creatively minded individual to be able to come up with the aspects of his jiu-jitsu game that he did. Like, tell me a little bit about how it's like learning from him and watching his creative process like tick.
You know, I think I really saw an evolution in his game when I was like 4 to 5 years into it, and the emphasis seemed to go from berimbolo to a completely new style of passing, you know, where it was more like free form boxing type of a dancing type of a thing. And we all saw that if people haven't seen it, the Hickson Cup highlights with the Mendes brothers. And he really started to kind of evolve in that respect, where that was something very discernible to your question, that I was able to say, wow, this is going in a totally different direction. And as I would roll with him, I could just feel it. It was bewildering when trying to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like if Guy is very much an old school pressure passer, and I with Guy, I know what's coming. You know what I mean? He's going to knee slice. You're not going to be able to stop
hug
it.
The hips, the whole thing.
Lapel,
right.
Going to baseball choke you. You know what I mean? And it's just. But with Rafa, it was very bewildering. And so I had never experienced that before. And so, that was cool. I've seen him with Guy working on different things, like, if I take the lapel and I move it here, and here. But, you know, I mean, so much of our, I think all of our growth in jiu-jitsu comes from laying in bed at night thinking, I could have done that, or maybe if I do that next time, or you know what I mean? So it's not like I was really witness to how much of that creative genius, that process that he has, you know. But the passing, definitely, I was able to witness that.
As an instructor, though, is he the type of guy that expresses his thoughts well, that you learn from him in a very easy, manageable way, or do you just kind of like pick it up from watching and observing?
For me, I mean, you're really kind of talking about like two issues there. One, what is my learning style, and how does he teach? You know, I mean, he's very much like, this is what we're going to do right now. When you have a very big class, you know, I teach now too, and I have to be mindful, just like you guys, that, you know, some of the students in there are just going to get lost. I mean, I say now that, we've seen everything we're going to see by purple belt, right? And so really it becomes about details and details and details. And so, when he's teaching at a big class, like with 80 people or 100 people on the mat at AOJ, it's very much like, okay, I'm going to give you guys this. Here is the move, the technique, and here I'm going to give you some higher level details for it. But not every one of you is a black belt. You might be a black belt, but not a black belt or even a purple belt at this technique. So that's when it becomes like, hey, dude, come show me. I'll just grab him. Come show me this or come show me that,
Yeah.
As for me, I mean, I spend 3 days a week drilling. That's typically my routine. And so for me, I kind of, after purple belt, I knew what I needed to learn. And so I didn't spend a whole lot of time at AOJ really learning from anybody at that point. I went over there for sparring and then to ask questions. But most of my growth came from just, 2 hours at every single, probably 3-4 days a week of just drilling, drilling, going over it. And as I got more and more into the gi game, I immediately got into lapel guard and all that, so.
That's actually a good question. You talked earlier about how adamant you were about sticking to no gi. How did you find your way to the gi? Was it a conscious, like, all right, it's time for me to put some time in?
My master told me you're going to start rolling in the gi now. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And he goes, no, you're going to do it. And I said, all right, well, I won't do no gi anymore. And he said, no, you're going to do both. And so I just started doing both, and I was terrible at, my guard was so bad that I resolved to, for the first year, I did not in the gi. I only played guard. And if I would tell people when I was sparring, if you pass, we're starting over. And if I sweep you, we're starting over, because I need that practice and to learn how to retain my guard. And then now I'm a guard player, after a year of doing that, it becomes your thing,
I tell my students that a lot. I a lot of times, like, I'm actually right now this month at the gym I teach at Matt's gym, we're teaching guard this, guard that. And I always tell them that like, one of the major things that is going to develop your cerebral game, that's going to make you think about not just what you're doing, but what your opponent is doing, how to make them do things that you want them to do, is by learning to play guard. Because it's when you're on top, you can just grab somebody holding there. You know what I mean? Like, you can sit there and pinch him down. All right, sweet. Yeah. Now you ain't going nowhere. Or you can use your weight and you just grab to your advantage. But when you're playing guard, you have to think about what your opponent is going to do and then work off of that intuition. Like, playing guard is huge. And that's that exact thing you said was something that everyone that's ever done jiu-jitsu, if you're a wrestler or you've got that big top game, you've spent that time on your butt. All right, cool. This is going to suck. I'm going to get my guard pass 100 times, but I'm going to be strong and I'm going to keep doing it in order to develop.
Yeah, and you can't have an ego. You got to be like, this gym is not the place where, I establish or get points. I get points in competition. It's like the gym is the place where I get my ass kicked and I learn my faults. And I see my weaknesses, and my partners, my teammates are there to expose my weaknesses, right? And for that, I'm grateful. And so come kick my ass, which at AOJ, there's no shortage of 13-year-olds in green belts who will whoop your ass,
Right.
So it's, you have to be able to just say, you know what, I'll lose here, and I'll just work on this weakness until it becomes my strength.
That triggered me so bad, because I train out of this place called the Hive Martial Arts Academy here in Manahawkin, New Jersey, and there is this guy Kai who is a green belt, like he's a kid, but he's already taller than me, and I know he's gonna go to the Olympics, but I have no idea for what sport. He's that physically dominant that I think he could just pick up any sport in a week and just get to the highest level of it in a month. And he's just like, he's so good and he's such a stud that I'm like, okay, I'm like the fertilizer that this kid is going to use to grow even higher. And it's like, once you remove that egotistical part of you that goes, I'm getting my ass handed to me by like a really young kid, you start to see the beauty of how you you kind of fit into the large story of jiu-jitsu, like the massive story being told everywhere. That's a little hippy dippy, but like that's where I go to think about it.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, at AOJ, you know, kids come from around the world, and they come because, you know, their parents will put them up, and, you know, they're homeschooled, and they're just professional jiu-jitsu athletes starting at like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. So that's just the way it is there, man. And you're going to get your ass whooped, and I get my ass whooped. So, you know, especially before a tournament, man, I'm what's great for me is before competition, I make sure that I'm rolling with the best kids. Like Jonathan becomes one of my biggest training partners before I go in. Jonathan Alves before a tournament, because, you know, when I'm a guard player, and when I roll with him, I will typically play guard, and he will never submit me. It's this unspoken thing where he will pass my guard and come right back, like that thing I was telling you about. And after 3 minutes, I want to start crying because my cardio is. I'm just like, dude, submit me, please submit me, please.
Just give me a break. You know, I just want to take that. I want to take that 10 seconds to take a breath and
do it.
I'm 50 years old, bro. Leave me alone, man. You know, but that's what gets me in. And then, you know, you go into competition after that, and it's like, you know, not that the guys are ever a joke in competition, because they're not at all. The only people who really compete are people who are freaking good, but it just makes it an easier road, you know. I'm
gonna stop whatever Kev is gonna say real quick, because you just complained like, oh, I'm a 50-year-old man, and I think we need to look at this real quick and just say, yeah, go fuck yourself, Nick. Picture. Yeah, how about you? Oh, I'm 50. Oh, my bones are glass, and I'm made of dust. Yeah, okay. You can't do that. That's not cool. That's not cool here, man. That's some false advertising bullshit right there. And I'm like, we're not trying to be some hot take podcast. I'm going to call you out. When
not to mention Laura
Saka.
That's not my cardio.
The Laura Soccer comment kind of completes it in the corner down.
That's my old man strength. That's not my cardio.
That's cool, man. So, as an older grappler, because I'm there with you, I'm an old man too myself. I go out there and still like to pretend like I can hang with the young bucks, and sometimes I can't. And sometimes I think to myself, like, what in the hell am I doing in this place? Like, sometimes it's awesome and I'm on top of the world, and sometimes I'm sitting in a corner, like in a puddle of my own sweat and blood and whatever other bodily fluids leaking out. And I think to myself, why do I continue to do this? Like, how as you progressed older, do you deal with that? Do you find yourself that it's difficult to just push through those mental barriers? Do you make yourself get more rest? Like, some of the things you do to make it happen for you.
I mean, you're talking about lifestyle now.
Yeah.
I work out every day. There's not a day, even in the van. So, you know, we're traveling all over the place in the van, and every time we get to wherever we're going to be camping, I just pull out all the weights, the bands, everything. And so, you know, I've probably worked out, I would say 4 to 5 days a week, every single week since I was 12 years old. That's 40 years. So I don't fuck around with working out. I work out all the time, and my diet is just, so strict. I'm vegan. I've been vegetarian for 35 years. I haven't had meat. I'm just super freaking strict, man. I'm keto. I don't eat any carbs. I'm aggro about it. So,
what the hell do you eat? keto, vegan, no carbs,
free.
Like, I talk about it a lot, but it basically, I start out the morning with what I call gorilla coffee. It's kind of like a bulletproof coffee, except I use I take like half a cup of olive oil. And I'll take raw almond butter, and I'll just, with like flaxseed meal, super into nutrition. I always have been. And I'll blend that up, and I'll just make like 40 ounces of that, 2 venti coffees, and I'll drink that until like 2. And then oftentimes at lunch, I'm a gorilla, man. And I'll just grab like 2 handfuls of spinach, and I'll eat 2 handfuls of spinach, and that's my lunch. And then at dinner, I'll just have veggies, you know, beans, veggies, whatever my wife cooks. That's
crazy. I believe me, I have thought about this because I like to think of myself as a healthy person. Again, I'm 43 years old, and I try to stay as a competitive grappler. I'm trying my best. I want to go do the AACC trials again this year. I want to win that shit eventually before I die. Blah, 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 blah. All these other things that I want to try to do. Convince myself that I can still hang with the young bucks. But one of the ways that I think about longevity is going to a vegan lifestyle and doing some of the things like that. And I'm always concerned about energy levels. Like you never have any problems with your energy levels. Do you feel like your body, obviously you've been doing it forever, but do you feel like your body converts it that way?
No, I mean, it's energy is just a function. Just if you look at the human physiology and you look at how we evolved, we didn't evolve eating at a buffet. You know, people eat way too much food. The problem with America and the industrialized world is not that we have too little, it's that we have too much. And so, you know, we evolved to deal with no food. And so, you know, I don't take supplements. I don't take vitamins. I don't take anything, man. I think it's all bullshit, man. I've been around the nutrition industry since I was young, and it's all just whack. It's whack, man. I was having this conversation with someone today, you know, whey protein, all that shit. They don't need any of that. Eat less food. You know what I mean? One of the most difficult things for the body is to digest. And when you stuff your stomach full of 18 different types of foods, you have to excrete all kinds of enzymes, and you cause this confusion inside of your body. And it just ends up, people think they're eating healthy and they're just creating more toxins. And so for me, I have much more energy. The more I eat food that is easily digestible, the more energy I have. And that makes sense, right? When you eat a big meal, you tell me, do you have a lot of energy afterwards? No, you don't. You want to go freaking take a nap. I don't feel, that's how I judge my health in real time. That's like the instant karma of whatever I'm eating. How do I feel after I eat it? If I'm tired, then I'm entering a state of unhealth. And so I make sure that I don't eat too much, and I make sure whatever I eat is clean and it's not bogging me down. So I don't get tired. I don't get, no, I feel much better. And like I said, I don't just do jiu-jitsu every day. I lift every day too.
So like, are you taking you're saying you're not working out the same every day. I assume you're leaving some time in the week for recovery, just like active recovery, just since that's like
I work out every day, but
every day.
So yeah. So every single day I lift every single day, but I don't lift the same body part,
Yeah.
And I might only, if you watched me work out, you would be like, oh my God, that dude is so lazy. Because I'll just sit there and listen to headphones and listen to a podcast and just lift. I'm really just looking for the pump, like Arnold said in Pump Iron. I'm just trying to get my pump on for whatever body part I'm working, and that's it. Once I get that on, then I'm done. I don't have to bench press 400 pounds anymore. I don't have to do any of those things. I just want to get my blood flow going, and then jiu-jitsu is my cardio or surfing. And before COVID, I was ice bathing, 2-3 times a week. And I really missed that because I was in a situation where, my testosterone I don't take any type of TRT or anything. I never have. And my testosterone every year was getting higher and higher. And finally I got to the point where the doctor was like, what the is going on? How is your testosterone like 800? And I was like, dude, the only thing I can think of is that I ice bath. That was like the change in my routine. And I think that spurs a survival mechanism almost where, your body's like, I have to kick out these hormones in order to survive and stay, because when you jump in, your body doesn't know any different. When you jump in like 35-degree water, and you're just chilling in that shit for 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I mean, you're creating a stimulus that is going to trigger a response. And so
your body's immediately discovering, wow, I need to do some shit to survive and dump all these hormones and rush all the blood to the essential organs and the muscles and all those things.
Yeah, so I think hormonal health is I focus a lot on my digestion. I focus a lot on gut bacteria, and so I try and the best thing you can eat for your gut is meat and sugar are some of the worst things that you can eat, and carbs are bad for your gut biome and plants are good. So I eat a lot of plants for that reason. And I notice a difference, and I focus on that, and I focus on hormones. That's one of the reasons I don't eat meat or dairy, because there's hormones in the animals that they're putting in there. It's not like you're going out there and you're freaking killing wild game. That's a totally different discussion, and I'm not a hunter because I'm way too lazy. So I don't, so I'm like, all right, I'm just not going to eat any of it,
Yeah.
But so I don't take those hormones into my body.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, like world champion at multiple different black belt levels. I'm too lazy. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your book, man. Author is something that is also I'm a writer myself. I'd like to consider myself a writer. I write articles.
A damn good one. Yeah, Jiu-Jitsu.
I've been doing a few little tinkerings here and there to figure out a way to crank out a book. And
I've been writing for forever. It was something like I gravitated to. I was a reader as a kid, and so I've always been a reader. I love literature. I love sci-fi. And so I wrote a book, published a book on UFC. I'm a photographer also, but I really wanted to turn my attention to sci-fi. And so I've been writing for the past 5-6 years, a sci-fi novel series. And I've just finished, I've put out right now an audiobook of the first book, and so that's available on my Instagram page. You can just click on there. It's on iTunes. The book is called Arc Zero. And so I love writing, man. I love how it's like jiu-jitsu in the sense that it's so difficult, and it's such a long road to write a book. And so it's just right back in that theme of this is what's the most difficult thing that I can attempt and give, my life hours to, and see what comes of it. I mean, it's never about the results. It's always about, the process, the process. Yeah. I love the journey of it. So I write every day. I've been writing every day, probably for 25 years, and I read relentlessly. I don't watch TV.
I'd be interested to know what sorts of sci-fi books you gravitate towards. Like if you're just like reading in your free time, do you like read as well, or are you mainly just like interested in writing?
You have to, if you're gonna write, you have to read. It's like saying, I'm gonna do jujitsu, but I'm going to be a jiu-jitsu player, but I'm not going to watch other people. I'm not going to watch videos. I'm not going to watch, I learned so much of jiu-jitsu from watching videos and watching, Keenan and watching Mikey and, all these guys, Levi and the brothers. And so, yeah, you have to read. And so, yeah, I'm actually my podcast that I had going for a long time, which was based on nutrition and jiu-jitsu, is called Modus V. And I put that aside because I've been, for the past 7 months, I've been a co-host of a sci-fi podcast called Infinite Worlds. And so Infinite Worlds is actually a science fiction magazine that publishes stories and art. It's kind of like heavy metal type stuff. It's really cool, very literary. And I approached the owner because I followed them or the publisher on Instagram. And I was like, dude, you need a podcast because this shit is really cool. And I'm like, let's do it. And he was like, oh my God, I'm a fan of yours. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And so we launched a podcast 7 months ago. It's doing really well. It's a lot of fun. And it's called Infinite Worlds magazine. But to your question, my favorite book of all time is Dune.
I gotta ask how as someone who, it's on my to read list, but the trailer for the Dune movie just came out. What are you thinking about it?
It's amazing. I can't wait. I've seen every single Dune, everything. I've read all the books, all the prequels, sequels, 30 books, man, of Dune. It's my favorite book series ever. I think Dune is it's the greatest story ever. And so, yeah, I'm pumped. I can't wait for the movie. I like the David Lynch one. So it's very trippy and psychedelic and heavy and martial arts and, all the shit I love, which is what my book is too. So
yeah,
very, very inspired by Dune. I love Dune novels. I like There's one of the best series that I've read, and I'm just rereading right now, was a Orcs and Crake, which was written by Margaret Atwood. And Orcs and Crake is a trilogy of books that she wrote. She also wrote Handmaid's Tale. So that was a really good one. And Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, which is pseudo sci-fi. It's really cool, man. Nerd culture, and it's dope. That won the Pulitzer a few years ago. Juno Diaz.
Just because this is the one topic that ever gets discussed on this show that I might be the black belt in, I gotta take a minute to one. We actually had one of our first episodes of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast, an author, Alexander Darwin. He is an author and black belt out of Boston, Massachusetts. And he has a book series called The Combat Codes, which is really? Super sci-fi, but also like accurate martial arts oriented.
Oh, wow.
Like he's all about like, I want to prove that you can write accurate martial arts, like MMA grappling style, in a way that is interesting and not lose. Like you don't got to make it all about, like you don't got to dilute martial arts in order to make it interesting. So he's like set it in the dystopian future, like like the whole.
I gotta check it out.
No, it's amazing, and I just want to, because I haven't talked to him in a while. I want to just I read the first book. It's incredible. The whole idea is that nations will elect like a martial arts champion. And so instead of everyone going to war, they'll have this one jacked up super soldier fight another jacked up super soldier, like in order to get oil and like food for their like nation.
Oh, wow.
And it's like super, super cool. And you got guys that are all about like scouting for talent, it's like sort of a Rocky situation, but it's legit martial arts. So Combat Codes, go read it if you haven't. Alexander Darwin. I'll send you a link. It's super cool. He's also got an audiobook out on Audible. But other than that,
I think that would be very difficult. I would never attempt that. I don't think I have the ability to do that. I'm more attracted to the philosophy, like George Lucas and Star Wars. That is very martial arts philosophy, but it's not really martial arts. And
it's samurai, like samurai, like Bushido.
Exactly. The whole combat jiu-jitsu thing, I don't think I could pull that off. I would be way too daunted by that.
Well, other than that, I feel like just if you're looking for sci-fi that's also got a lot of fantasy elements, it's almost like a space fantasy. The Mistborn books and Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, I'm like super deep into Stormlight. One of my jiu-jitsu buddies actually got me into him. So
that's so cool, man.
Yeah, everyone in jiu-jitsu always keys me off. I get all of my recommendations exclusively from jiu-jitsu people.
Because this is our tribe. I mean, this is
right. Exactly.
Exactly.
We're kind of shallow people now.
Oh my God. No, I mean, Kev, you were just saying, like, I think it was you that was telling in the past episode, like, I don't have any non-jiu-jitsu friends. I got like two,
right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's weird how it happens.
I have surfer friends, but most of my surfer friends do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get them to do jiu-jitsu. All right.
Yeah,
I look at him as like less than people. It's like, what do you mean you don't know jiu-jitsu?
Come on, go to a class.
You should. Don't you realize?
Yeah. No, in Newport Beach, almost everybody that I hang out with is a jiu-jitsu guy and a surfer. I mean, that's because it's Newport Beach, So, between Joel Tudor and Barca and Dustin Barca and just all these really amazing surfers, Eli Olson, it's really rad that whole junction, that nexus between jiu-jitsu and surfing. Very cool.
Let me ask you one more question before we get going here, Nick, because I'm intrigued by you, because I'm always intrigued by people like yourself that are self-motivated and eclectic and have found a way to make it work, have found their way in the world being the person they want to be unapologetically. Tell me about the differences between the passion and the discipline. How much of it is just the thumb up at your world, nose in the air, I'm going to do what I want to do, and how much of it is the discipline that's required to be able to live that
passion
lifestyle?
Has nothing to do with it, man. Passion wanes. You have to be disciplined. You have to just, it's like when I bought the van, I just every single day I would just make a list. At night I did it just like jiu-jitsu. I'd watch YouTube videos. I never built out a van, and it did it exactly the same way. And I would just make a list of things that I was going to work on, and I'd wake up in the morning and I would start working. And guess what? I didn't want to fucking work some days. You know what I mean? My hands hurt, my back hurt, it's hardcore construction. And but it was something I wanted to do by myself. It was a goal of mine to do it on my own. And so instead of paying somebody to do it. And so, passion's bullshit, man. Talent's bullshit. Just do the work, man. Just go put your head down. When I was in law school, I would just go in the library every single day, and I would sit in that library till 9 at night from, 1 in the afternoon after classes or 10 in the morning. I would stay there for 12 hours and I would just read the worst shit I ever read in my life. It was boring. It wasn't Dune. I can tell you that. And then when I passed the bar, the same thing, man. You just, pass the bar in Florida, pass the bar in California. You just do the work, man. You cannot think about passion or motivation. You have to just shut the fuck up and get to work, man. And I've done that enough in my life to where I don't think about it. I don't think about what other people think. I don't give a shit, man, because, other people echo their own doubts to you. And so it's almost a reflexive reaction on their part because they don't have the motivation. I mean, that's why people spend time in their lives criticizing other people, when it's like, dude, you're obviously using that life energy because you're frustrated or whatever it is. But you can't. I don't think about any of that. I don't think about passion. I don't think about other people, what they think. I just do. I set a goal and I just do it.
So just as a follow up to that. So the idea of passion, I think people equate that to satisfaction or enjoyment. So if there is no passion, therefore there can be no satisfaction or enjoyment with just a disciplined life, like some kind of puritanical lifestyle. Where do you feel do you still get the satisfaction out of accomplishment that comes from that?
Oh yeah, but I get the satisfaction out of the process. I get the satisfaction by saying, okay, I'm working on squid guard today with my partner. We're going to do it for an hour. I'm going to see if I can develop this new technique. I'm going to see if I can, hone my entry into this position or, this transition. And then I just, that's where it's more of an incremental breakdown than it is for, I just won worlds. Now, when I win a tournament, am I ecstatic? Yeah, it's freaking, I take a moment and I make sure that I savor, that success, but I don't get too hung up on success, because then the flip side is you get hung up on failure, and every success is built on 1,000 failures. So you have to be able to, sublimate that failure and just walk past it and go beyond. Okay, that didn't work out. Keep going. That didn't work out. Keep going. So, yeah, awesome. That's an interesting question, but it's definitely one where you have to learn how to, you have to embrace the process, and you have to love the process. You have to say, I'm a grinder. I
literally just wrote that down on my little notebook. Embrace the process.
So you guys have any questions on van life? That's one thing that
I mean, okay, well now I'm not Tooth, I'm not gonna lie. Now I kind of just want to talk about did you read the Thrawn books in Star Wars? I got to start
nerds. Give me a minute here.
I got a cup of dice for my D&D games. I got some D&D books over there.
Let me take a breath here before you guys take me off in a dark here.
I would love to just briefly. I would love to close with some questions I had about van life that I think some of our jiu-jitsu people want to know. A lot of them revolve around how much laundry you must have and how you take care of that. Just because of jiu-jitsu, it's like it piles up out of nowhere. You probably have a ton of gis and rash guards.
I actually have right now. I'm only traveling with 2 gis. And so I got my black gi and my white gi, both AOJ. And the reality is that as I started traveling, I anticipated that I was going to be rolling, a lot more. But my wife has not gotten COVID yet, and so we just made a decision. Gyms are, people are freaked out right now, and so people rolling in places that I've gone to is illegal. It's not allowed. They're doing it undercover. They're, blocking out windows, and I have rolled at places. But the real training that I was able to get in this summer was I spent when we got all the way up to the border of Washington. I was, again, everything for me, like you guys, comes from our jiu-jitsu tribe, right? So one of my drilling partners had been up to Oregon, and he's like, there are these brothers up there, the Adamson brothers, and they trained under Rafael Lovato, and they're really freaking good black belts. And so we got up there, and it was a very small town with like 6,000 people and 0 cases. So we started, once we got there, it was so cool, man. These guys, Nate and Zach Adamson, they're so great. One of them, Zach, is actually competing at the next. Where's the tournament? Is it in Oklahoma? There's a tournament. There's an IBJJ.
No, it's in Orlando. It's right down the street from me. It's about an hour. It's about an hour away. I'm in Tampa. It's about an hour away.
Wow. Okay.
The
I think there's one in Oklahoma. One in Oklahoma.
The Austin Open is this weekend, I believe it is. The UFC IBJJF Austin Open is this weekend. One of our guys is doing that one, and then the Pans are the following weekend. But you might be right. There could be something in Oklahoma too.
I think they're. That's what I remember, but maybe not. Maybe it's Austin. I don't know. But so, anyways, I got up there, and their gym, they don't really have cases, so I started rolling with them. I really hit it off with them. One of them surfs. And they also have, their dad has a 50-acre farm just outside of town. And it's one of the most beautiful pieces of property I've ever seen. The trees are beautiful. It's like magical, man. And so we just went out and we would camp there. And so we started alternating. We would spend 2 days at the gym, and I started teaching at the gym and doing seminars. And we would also spend like 2 days out at the farm. And we started telling them about, there's this like, Airbnb type of a deal for people that have property called Hip Camp. And I'm like, you guys need to take this freaking farm and create like a campground. And so, dude, they started, by the time we left, we were there for like almost a month. They were cutting in roads. They were putting in. And so what they're going to do is they're going to create like a campsite. And this town is amazing. It's right by the beach. The woods are just magical, and they're going to put in a massive tent. And so for next summer, they're going to do like a big jiu-jitsu retreat there and have like big names come up and teach and just invite people up. And so it's so funny how, just like we were saying, everything for all of it, for us three, revolves around jiu-jitsu. That's all it is, That's it.
I mean, I very clearly remember the day I decided to just sign on fully for this cult, and it was like I graduated. I got a master's degree and an undergrad in journalism and a master's in marketing, and I was working for a local newspaper, and I was covering a local election, and I was basically just interviewing these 2 old white dudes who just kind of did vague insults at each other.
Yeah.
And I got done with the Republican guy, and I just sat in my car, and I was just like, I hate this. I hate this more than I've ever hated anything in my life. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, and then I convinced my boss to let me cover. There was a King of the Cage fight, and I was like, I was a white belt at the time, but I'm like, you gotta let me cover this event. Like it's cool. It's in my jurisdiction. They're like, okay. And I got to go and meet the fighters. It was great. And I'm like, I got to figure out a way to make this my whole hustle.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
I teach a lot of private lessons, and I go out and outsource. Like I'm a man about town. I bartend and shit like that. Everybody in town knows me. I've lived in Tampa my whole life. So, everybody in the city knows who I am. But I go out and I'll outsource people, lawyers and doctors and whoever from the community to come take private lessons with me. And I always tell them, like, I understand we're having this conversation right now. I'm telling you like what jiu-jitsu is all about. And like in your mind, you're thinking, yeah, this would be cool. I'll learn a little self-defense. I'll do some cardio, or I'll do this and that and learn how to fight or learn how to do UFC stuff. And I always tell them, I was like, I'm going to placate you and tell you that, yes, that's why we're going to train. And like, this is the reason why to get you in the door. But after about 10 sessions, you're going to realize that it's so much more than that. Like jiu-jitsu is so much deeper and so much cooler, and it's going to change you and challenges in ways you can't even begin to understand. And before long, you're going to be sending me like YouTube clips on Instagram at like 2:00 in the morning on this. Oh, tell me how to do this Darce choke, coach. And like, I'm going to like San Diego for my vacation or for work. Is there any gyms out there I can go train at? And like, I wake
up every morning to like 7 or 8 vague threats from a few of my jiu-jitsu buddies that I train with that are like almost actionable violence against me. And I'm just like, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah,
I think
it's a lifestyle, man, you know.
It is. Takes over you.
It's great.
And it takes us all around the world. That's what's so great about it, you know. We meet different people. It's the best, man.
You could run into somebody that you've never met before in your life, and you're like, you train? They got like a little jiu-jitsu shirt on. You train? Yeah, I train. All of a sudden,
you're like, oh yeah.
Now it's on.
Buddies instantly. Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're friends, man.
All right, Kevin, I'm going to need you to not make fun of me for 30 seconds, okay? Starting
now.
About
Oxford. If we talk about Oxford, it's off the tip.
No,
he went to Oxford, Nick.
Okay.
This is the part where he tells us all that he went to Oxford and spent time in London.
All right, okay.
He's going to drop some.
I'm going to drop. All right, so I got the chance to study abroad at Trinity College in Oxford, and I was training. I
was fucking around. I didn't realize you were going to do it.
I was literally going to do it. I was, and I'm just like, I need you to not make fun of me like you do every time. You're not sorry because you do this every fucking time. All right, so I got the chance to get to study abroad, and it was great. But everyone went there, and by that point, I had trained for a little over a year. I was still white belt, but I was in love with it. And I realized that there's a Carlson Gracie school a few blocks away from the campus. And so every night I would just go there and train, and everyone was going out to the bars and they'd wonder, where the hell is Kevin? And they'd ask me during the day, where the hell do you go? You just straight up disappear after class, and then we can't see you. And sometimes you got bruises on your face and like you're sweaty and like you're just walking around. I'm like, yeah, I'm training jiu-jitsu. And they're like, why the fuck are you doing that? And I 2 times I had to kind of explain to them why I like jiu-jitsu and what it is. And I'm like, and it never really got through. So I was always like just on my own doing that. But I still talk to the people I train with there. I think, did we lose Nick?
You don't know it. He's still there. We might have lost Nick.
Oh boy,
that's a shame. I wanted to tell him bye. He's awesome. He was a great guest.
I mean, yeah, it's so fucking dumb that we never we talked about so much cool stuff, but he's an IBJJF Masters champion. We never talked about that.
Yeah, he was a great guest, man. It's a shame. It's a shame we lost him.
All right, I'm gonna message to see if we can
just tell him thanks or whatever. You got it. You get this. You're professional.
I'm just gonna see if. Oh wait, he left. He might. I just want to see if we can close the circuit on this, because I would hate to, but with Chris Howder being our last guest and I had to film a makeup video right after that. He did you know what happened? He froze. And and then he just wrote on a note, "Till we meet again." And then he fucking left.
I think I saw that part. Chris left. You know what's really funny? Just as a side note, coming into this interview, I almost anticipated the same thing from Nick Tooth, because I didn't know much about him. I thought he was going to be this eclectic, over the top, all over the place, bouncing around. Because I met him once, and I think the one time I met him, it was like a quick little introduction, and I kind of you see him with the missing tooth. You know what I'm talking about? And you kind of connect the dots. Yeah. He's just his personality. Man, he is so cool. He really had such amazing insights. He's such an amazing
there
person.
We go. Hey, Nick is back. All right.
I was just blowing you up.
Well, thanks, yeah. Man. So, but the central point of what I was trying to say was that everyone else was doing their own thing, but because of jiu-jitsu, I got to have a divergent path and go meet a bunch of these weird, cool people that beat the shit out of me every day, and they hated my guts a little bit because I was a filthy American, and they called me a colonial, and they were asking and then on the 4th of July they took turns beating the shit out of me and saying oh, how's your tea, fucker? And they're still mad about the tea party, and I'm just I'm a white belt. This isn't I'm not. I wasn't the guy. I didn't do that.
I mean, I didn't move from the. I didn't kick you guys out of the colony.
I'm all for the queen. Let's do it, man.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, man, like I was telling Kev before we got caught off, because I'm sure we're wrapping this up here pretty soon. But like I was just telling Kev, like. Dude, like you're amazing, man. I'm not just saying that just to drop that. Like we had Chris Howder on the last podcast, and Chris is awesome. But have you ever met Chris before? He's all over the place. You know what I mean? He's he's an eclectic.
He is a lovely man, but he is like trying to wrangle 17 cats at once.
You can also see the genius, the moments of genius in his brain when the wheels start turning and you get some of that gold out of him. But like when he told me you were going to come on, and he told me he's in a van, he's driving around, and like I kind of had the same ideas. All right, cool. We'll just roll through this. I'm sure we'll get some good stuff out of him. You know, he's a cool guy. He's been around. But dude, like talking to you, bro, you're awesome, man. You really are, dude.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Like from someone that is trying to live somewhat of a lifestyle like yourself, like it's awesome for me to meet a person that has been able to be true to himself and come away from it. And you have great insights. You're an intelligent guy, and like it was a joy to talk to you. It really was, man.
Thank you so much, man. It was a joy for me too, man. I'm honored for you guys having me on. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to come out and roll because hold on, the next part of my van adventure is we're going back to Florida. So,
dude,
what part of Florida?
I'm in Tampa.
Okay,
Central.
Yeah, I'm gonna come
Tampa.
down.
Yeah,
spend some time in. We're gonna spend like a month in Miami, so that'll be perfect.
Does Kev have your info? Are you on Instagram or something like that?
Yeah,
I'm on Instagram. Nick the Tooth.
That's how this whole interview happened, man.
If you want to give me your number after we go off here, I promise I won't hit you up at like
hit me on Instagram. I'll give you we'll change numbers for sure.
Yeah, dope, cool, man.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think just like one last question, if you would have me, Mr. Tooth, and that is, the inciting incident for wanting to have you on, aside from you having lived a very interesting life, is you as a black belt, won 2019 Masters, and I would love to get your insights on how the preparation for the event was, and how you felt coming out of it. It was a really big feather in your cap, and I just want to learn more about it.
It was interesting because I was down. I didn't even know if I was going to do the tournament. I really wanted to. I got promoted in October, I think. And the tournament was December, like 14th, I think. But I had, in the interim, I went to Ecuador with Chito Vera, is one of my very close friends, and we went down there. He's a UFC fighter. He just fought Sean O'Malley, beat Sean O'Malley, and I think he's fighting Jose Aldo next. I don't know if I'm breaking news here that shouldn't be broken or not, but I think that's his next fight.
You heard it here first, Nick the Tooth. that'll be our go-to clip just to play you up.
Yeah, he's one of my closest friends, and so I went down to Ecuador with him, and we were doing helping him with some promotional things down there, and so when I got back, I had like 3 weeks. I mean, I got to train down there, but obviously when you're traveling, you don't get to train like you wanted to. So I came back. I had 3 weeks. I think I signed up like the day. I was like, okay, I need to be able to train a few days and see how I feel in the academy. And I did. And so then I signed up. I finally got through, sometimes it's a nightmare signing up for IBJJF. But I finally got through like the last hour I was on the phone with them, like, dude, just get me in the tournament. And so, and then I just was, before then, like I said, I was training with Jonathan all the time, and I just trained every single day for that 3-4 weeks. And going in there, I just felt like, okay, one of the guys I had lost to twice at two different, I think at purple belt and at both times at purple belt. And it's funny because for me, every time that I've gotten promoted and then competed, that next tournament I lose. I freaking lose. It's like I have to like earn my way up to that belt. Okay, now I'm a purple belt, which really means I'm the white belt of purple belts. Okay, now I'm a brown belt, which really means I'm a freaking white belt of brown belts, And so going into that tournament, I knew I was going to face him again. A really close friend of mine too. But he got me twice, and both matches I was winning, and just mental mistakes. And he's good, man. So so going into that tournament, I just thought, okay, let me. I looked at my brackets. I was like, all right, I'm going to fight him second. Let me just get through. Let me just go this first match. Let me just try and win this first match at black belt, because I'm a black belt. I'm a white belt of black belts. And so that first match, I'm a guard player, even in no-gi. And so my philosophy is always like, okay, I'm super, super, super limber. You know, I could put my foot behind my head and shit. I sit in lotus every day, do a lot. My wife is a yoga teacher, so I do a lot of yoga. And so my philosophy was just, you know, I'm not going to let anybody pass my guard. That's all I give a shit about. I don't care if I win or lose. I just don't. That was like my mindset. So I wouldn't freak myself out with anything else. And, you know, going into the tournament, man, it was just every match was a grind. It was really tough. But, you know, in the end, I won. I beat my buddy, which was a great feeling. And so, and he had won Worlds before, and then I just won in the final, and I was just like, holy shit, I cannot believe I just did that. And Guy was coaching me, and that's always awesome when one of the brothers coaches me. So yeah,
dude, that's
really cool, man.
That's an accomplishment. I always say that, like, I want it in brown belt in the gi and no gi, and like it's one thing to say you want it in brown belt at Masters 2, whatever it is, which is kind of cool. But you know, the idea of winning the division against other brown belts that are 40 years old, 42 years old, like those guys have only been training jiu-jitsu for 6-7 years. You know what I'm talking about? When you're at the black belt level at 40 years old, you could be going against a dude that's been training for 20, 25 years.
He's training longer than, you know.
Yeah. Some of them.
He's been a black belt longer than you've been training.
He's been a black belt longer than I've been training. That's a lot of the times, man. And like it's something, man. I really want to win it at the black belt. I really want to get out there and do it in the black belt, just because like I just want to be able to say, you know what, man, like I'm up there with some of these like legendary dudes, and it's just you do it for myself, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I'm hoping tomorrow I'll be back in Newport Beach and gonna start training again with the brothers, and I'm hoping tomorrow I get a chance to train Megaton. He's training over at Ruka with his daughter, Mackenzie's fighting, I think, next week. Yeah. And so I'm hoping tomorrow I get to roll with him. I've always wanted to roll with him.
How isn't that near San Diego, Newport Beach, or am I off base with that?
It's halfway between Newport and San Diego, or it's halfway between Los Angeles and San Diego.
Yeah, because I go to San Diego a lot. I have a friend of mine at Transit Auto, so
it's like 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll come meet you guys if I ever go there.
So I go down there and train with Andre, and probably like once a month.
Yeah.
I love Andre.
Yeah, he's super cool. Super cool, dude.
Yeah.
Dope,
all right,
man.
guys.
Yeah, man. Nick, bro, again, I won't blow you up again, but you're awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. It was such an honor coming on, man. I'd love to come on again. So thank you so much.
I mean, like, as for real, it was an absolute pleasure having you. And I got to say, I'm pissed because of this, but my sister is a vegan, and she has been trying to get me to like not go full vegan, but commit to like a meatless day of the week. And I've always been like, nah, I need my cheeseburgers. But because in honor of you, sir, in honor of you, I will experiment until the end of October. I will see how I feel with like one meatless day a week. And I'll see if that gets the ball rolling on me being healthier. I used to be in shape. I'm sort of pudgy now. So we'll see if I can get maybe like climb that mountain and come up to where all like the immortal vegans live that don't age, you know? So like that's
listen, man, I tell people it's not about the exception. It's the rule. My rule is I'm vegan, but man, there's some pizza here that I love, like the Beverly Hills. I'm eating it, dude.
Is it like cauliflower or like?
No, it's
just regular pizza.
Pizza, man. It's my cheat day. And I don't get a chance to do that very often, but you know, once a week I'll eat something that I'm like, I'm gonna eat it. I don't give a shit.
You've convinced me to dig deeper into the vegan lifestyle, man. Vegetarian lifestyle.
Like Kevin, a year from now, we're just gonna be like ripped up vegans, man. We're just gonna be so jacked.
Anyone can hit me with any questions on my Instagram about diet. I get questions all the time. So any listeners,
actually, at the close of the show, we usually allow the guests to plug whatever they might want to plug. So, like, I know you said you had an audiobook out. You've got your Instagram, Nick the Tooth. Is there anything else that we're forgetting?
Everything comes off my Instagram. So just go Nick the Tooth is my Instagram, and people can just go to that.
All right.
And,
we'll be sure to
find my audiobook, a sci-fi audiobook. I've got 9 chapters up. I'll have another 3 like in another week. And just something to do while you're sitting at home, quarantining. Shit.
All right.
We all got to do something.
Sitting at home in quarantine or riding around in a van during quarantine.
Or riding
homes
around
on wheels.
Van, right?
All right. Well,
Down by the river.
Down by the river.
That's right. That's right.
I just sent you
All
that
right,
text
boy.
message with my number if you want to shoot me.
All
a
right.
text.
Okay.
Well,
Awesome.
okay.
Yeah,
So this has been a barn burner episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. And as always, I have been your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher, and special guest, Nick the Tooth. Nick, thank you so much for coming by. We hope to have you on again soon. But
Awesome.
until our next episode, all of you out there, remember to stay safe, stay healthy, love your loved ones, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Later, boys.